Hi, chào mừng các bạn đã quay trở lại với chuỗi chìa khóa du học New Zealand 2021, đồng tổ chức bởi Viện ISB thuộc Đại học Kinh tế Thành phố Hồ Chí Minh và Cơ quan Giáo dục New Zealand ENZ thuộc Chính phủ New Zealand. Chuỗi chìa khóa du học New Zealand 2021 sẽ đem đến cho các bạn cái nhìn toàn diện và chi tiết về nền giáo dục đại học của New Zealand thông qua lăng kính chính thống của đại diện chính phủ, đại diện trường và các chuyên gia, cũng như các câu chuyện người thật việc thật của các bạn du học sinh và cựu du học sinh ở New Zealand. Ở trong số đầu tiên thì chúng ta đã cùng tìm hiểu những thành tựu mà nền giáo dục New Zealand đạt được trên trường thế giới thông qua triết lý giáo dục cốt lõi là lấy cái sự thúc đẩy sáng tạo và tư duy phản biện làm trung tâm, cộng thêm với định hướng về tương lai và mang tính thực tiễn cao. Ở trong số này thì chúng ta sẽ cùng tiếp cận một cái góc nhìn khác, đó chính là chúng ta sẽ cùng tìm hiểu cái ấn tượng về du học sinh Việt Nam chúng ta ở trong con mắt của các chuyên gia giáo dục New Zealand. Dẫn dắt câu chuyện của ngày hôm nay là Phó Giáo sư Tiến sĩ Trần Hà Minh Quân, Viện trưởng Viện ISB thuộc Đại học Kinh tế Thành phố Hồ Chí Minh. Và tham gia câu chuyện là một chuyên gia cực kỳ am hiểu về thị trường Việt Nam trong suốt 20 năm qua, đó chính là giáo sư Neil Quigley, hiệu trưởng trường Đại học Waikato, New Zealand, cùng đồng nghiệp của ông là bà Sharon Calvert, giám đốc quốc tế của Đại học Waikato. Nào, trước khi bước vào câu chuyện thì chúng ta hãy cùng xem qua đoạn clip ngắn sau để hiểu hơn về diễn giả ha.
Đại học Waikato là một trong 8 trường đại học công lập của New Zealand nằm tại Hamilton, thành phố lớn thứ tư cả nước. Là trường đại học phát triển theo hướng đổi mới và linh hoạt nhất của New Zealand, Đại học Waikato liên tục cung cấp các chương trình đào tạo tiên tiến nhất nhằm trang bị cho sinh viên các kỹ năng và kiến thức cần thiết của môi trường kinh doanh và tiến bộ khoa học kỹ thuật đang phát triển liên tục của thế giới. Mỗi năm, Đại học Waikato thu hút trên 17% sinh viên quốc tế đến từ hơn 80 quốc gia trong tổng số khoảng 12.000 sinh viên của trường. Bên cạnh việc đầu tư mạnh vào cơ sở vật chất tiện nghi hiện đại, dịch vụ hỗ trợ sinh viên, chăm sóc sức khỏe, các câu lạc bộ khoa học, văn hóa, nghệ thuật, thể thao và tôn giáo dành cho sinh viên, thì Đại học Waikato đặc biệt chú trọng thiết kế chương trình đào tạo tích hợp với thực hành thông qua các dự án nghiên cứu ứng dụng và cơ hội thực tập tại các doanh nghiệp, đảm bảo sinh viên sẵn sàng đáp ứng yêu cầu của nhà tuyển dụng ngay sau khi tốt nghiệp. Học tập tại Đại học Waikato, bạn sẽ được trải nghiệm chương trình học đại học đứng thứ hạng 266, top 1,1% đại học xuất sắc nhất thế giới, đồng thời đạt thứ hạng cao trên các bảng xếp hạng uy tín của thế giới. Theo bảng xếp hạng của QS World University Rankings, đại học đạt chuẩn 5 sao về giảng dạy, chất lượng đầu ra, cơ sở vật chất, quốc tế hóa, phát triển toàn diện, khoa học xã hội và quản lý 2020, top 250 thế giới về tài chính kế toán, top 300 thế giới về kinh tế và kinh doanh quản lý 2019. Theo bảng xếp hạng của QS Graduate Employability Rankings, top 500 thế giới về chất lượng đầu ra 2020, top 300 thế giới về nghiên cứu kinh doanh và quản lý theo bảng xếp hạng QS Subjects Rankings 2019. Trường quản lý thuộc Đại học Waikato là một trong 97 trường kinh doanh ưu tú dưới 1% trên thế giới đoạt danh hiệu Triple Crown, nghĩa là đạt chứng nhận từ 3 tổ chức kiểm định chất lượng giáo dục trường kinh doanh uy tín hàng đầu là AACSB, Equis và Amber. Giáo sư Neil Quigley là hiệu trưởng trường Đại học Waikato, đồng thời là chủ tịch Ngân hàng Trung ương của New Zealand và giám đốc hội đồng thành viên của Cơ quan Quản lý Bằng cấp New Zealand. Giáo sư đã xây dựng thành công nhiều chương trình liên kết đào tạo bậc đại học giữa hai nước, cũng như hỗ trợ nhiều dự án đào tạo của chính phủ Việt Nam. Năm 2005, giáo sư Neil Quigley được chính phủ Việt Nam trao tặng huân chương vì sự nghiệp thúc đẩy hòa bình và tình hữu nghị giữa các dân tộc. Năm 2013, giáo sư Neil Quigley được phong tặng danh hiệu tiến sĩ danh dự của trường Đại học Kinh tế Thành phố Hồ Chí Minh. Đại học Waikato, New Zealand, nơi sinh viên hàng ngày đều từng bước tạo nên những sự đổi mới cho thế giới. Tại Đại học Waikato, hoạt động học tập về thể thao luôn song hành với nhau nhằm tạo ra thế hệ công dân toàn cầu có sức khỏe và trí óc minh mẫn, phụng sự cho nền công nghiệp 4.0. Tại đây, sinh viên được trao trí thức và nhiều công cụ để xây dựng tương lai, là nơi nuôi dưỡng những tài năng trẻ và chào đón những cá nhân ưu tú. Phương pháp giảng dạy của trường luôn luôn được cập nhật không ngừng, theo sự thay đổi của thế giới, áp dụng nhiều sáng kiến được thực tế hóa bởi các doanh nghiệp. Về mặt tinh thần, Đại học Waikato chính là nơi tạo ra những khoảnh khắc để bạn sẻ chia cùng những người thương yêu. Nơi đây bạn không thể thấy ranh giới giữa giảng viên và học trò, giữa các sắc tộc và các nền văn hóa. Khi đến đây, bạn sẽ cảm thấy mọi thứ dường như đều được hài hòa làm một. Nuôi dưỡng con người, kiến tạo tương lai, tạo nên bước chuyển mình mới, mọi thứ đều được bắt đầu tại đây, Đại học Waikato.
Thank you for your accepted our invitation to be the webinar talking about study in New Zealand for Vietnamese students. First of all, as I know, Professor Neil, you have the long time experience working with Vietnamese university, and also a lot of Vietnamese students study at New Zealand from Victoria, Wellington, and Waikato. Can you give me your impression about Vietnamese students from your experience?
Okay, thank you. And yeah, good morning, everyone. It's great to be able to communicate at least in this way by webinar, even if we can't be there in person because of COVID and all of the closed borders. My experience of Vietnamese students goes back for 20 years now. And one of the things that impressed me about the Vietnamese students from the outset was that your high school system has a lot of integrity in the way it encourages students to develop good learning skills, and also equips them with a lot of fundamental study skills, which are really important for success in university education. So one of the things that I noticed was that there are a large number of students coming through from the high school system in Vietnam who are well prepared to undertake university study. And one of the other things that I noticed was that Vietnamese students come to their university study with a strong sense of wanting to learn, being very diligent about their study, knowing that they have their parents' expectations for their success for the future that they have to meet in studying at university. And so they always work very hard. And so that's a great combination, really, of having been well prepared at high school and also being very motivated and focused on their tertiary study. So over many years, I've seen a lot of Vietnamese students come to New Zealand, that's true, and they are uniformly successful in their studies here because of those combinations of preparation and also their focus on their studies.
Yeah, thank you very much. But let you say, Vietnamese students been working very hard, especially the attitude towards for learning. However, because in Vietnam we build them quite good in terms of like the logic fundamentals, and that's why they can study hard. But as some experience of the professor teach for Vietnamese students, they say Vietnamese students have a little bit a lack of like creative, like think out the box. Maybe they are quite safe in terms of the logic of thinking, and that's one of the weakness of Vietnamese students. So especially for Vietnamese conduct the PhD study or master by research, we cannot perform excellent like when they are doing at the coursework. What do you think about that? And any idea about how we can help Vietnamese students improve the creative abilities?
I think you're correct that this is one of the challenges for Vietnamese students. And in our high school programs in the West and in our undergraduate programs in university, students are encouraged to be both more creative and also potentially critical of the ideas in the textbook, of the things that their teachers say. They're encouraged to test their way of thinking and their imagination against that of their teacher, and that's thought to be a good thing. So in the Vietnamese education system, yes, often that's not true. But, you know, to be innovative, to be creative, to think independently is a natural human condition. And so when the students come to New Zealand, you know, we have this opportunity to help them develop that aspect of their intellect, which they perhaps may not have developed as much in parts of the Vietnamese system. And that's part of the opportunity that they have in coming to study in New Zealand or another Western country, is that ability to develop that aspect of their intellectual imagination and their critical thinking skills.
Yeah, that's perfect. Then I think that more and more Vietnamese students have that opportunity in order to improve their design thinking, in order to be more successful in the digital age. More than that, what do you think about like the language skill and the communication skill of Vietnamese students in current day compared to the last 20 years when you started working with Vietnamese students?
When I first started working with Vietnamese students, English was taught in the school system and at the universities, but in a very technical way, where there was a focus on grammar and spelling, and the fluency in English was poor. And it was difficult for students 20 years ago to actually find ways to develop fluency in English. I had one student, one of the first students who came to New Zealand under my sponsorship, and she had been encouraged by her parents to go into the tourist areas in Hanoi to talk to students around, to talk to tourists around Quan Khiem Lake and engage with them in English to improve the fluency in her English, because that was a time when, you know, there weren't many such opportunities. What we see now is the Vietnamese students coming to New Zealand, their English is much more fluent. We can much more rely on their English test being translated into fluency of thinking in English as well as speaking in English. And so English, while still a challenge for some students, is not nearly as big a challenge as it was in the past.
Yeah, thank you. Then one thing from the parent perspective, as you mentioned, a lot of Vietnamese parents invest a lot in their kids, especially sending their kids to New Zealand in order to achieve bigger success. However, in the Western cultures, we want people to live more happily, and especially don't put more pressure for the kids when they build up and grow up. So from that, I would like to hear from you the advice for Vietnamese parents in terms of like how they should do the best for their kids in like sending their kids to New Zealand. Yeah.
Well, the opportunity to come to New Zealand is, as we said before, partly about developing that creative part of the intellect of students. And that's actually very important from the perspective of not just the career that they will have in the future, but the life that they will have. So because the world we live in now is changing so quickly, just look at the technology we're using for this webinar, but also so many occupations have developed that require a combination of technical skills but also intellectual imagination. And they can be developed in all sorts of ways. So careers now emerge from students studying interesting combinations of things that we wouldn't have imagined were a good route to a career 20 years ago. So I think 20 years ago, a lot of parents might have said, well, study accounting, study economics, study engineering, because we understand exactly how that leads into a career path. But now, people who study creative disciplines and arts and computer science could be some of the most sought after designers for websites, and you know, this is a combination of creativity and knowledge that we wouldn't have thought about 20 years ago.
Okay, thank you. And Sharon, as I know you in charge of international project for Waikato, like Professor Neil just mentioned, can you share a little bit about like any recommendation for Vietnamese students when they go to study in New Zealand? How to make them like be more successful during the time they study and also after graduate?
Sure. Yeah, so we have quite a few Vietnamese students at Waikato, and many of them are very successful. And I think we've spoken to them in the past about, you know, what can we do to help them prepare more. And I think one of the things is, you know, to do their research before they come to New Zealand. At Waikato, we have the opportunity for them to speak to Vietnamese students who are already here, and for them to ask questions about certain things that they might be apprehensive about or worried about before coming to study. I think it's about, certainly their English plays a very big part. And as Neil said, their English has, in the few years that I've been involved with Vietnamese students, their English has really improved. But I think they still need to focus on the academic English. And, you know, so if they can put as much preparation into that before they come, I think they'll be better prepared when they arrive. I think the doing a little bit of research on New Zealand itself, on the culture, you know, investigating things like the accommodation, and really familiarizing themselves with the country, so that when they arrive, they're better prepared, and they don't experience as much of that culture shock, and so that they can start to focus on their studies, and yeah, pick up and be successful from the day that they start.
Yeah, cool. And I hope that very soon New Zealand can open and the condition allow for Vietnamese students early come to start their study. However, the COVID, we never know, and that's why cannot stop the dream of the student and parent about study in New Zealand. Currently, they build a lot of global pathway in order to have the student can start now after they graduate the high school, and they can go to New Zealand when the condition open without waiting. So what do you think about global pathway? Don't you think that's the new trend or the model even after the COVID in the future?
Yeah, I think pathway programs like the one that we have with ISB is a very important pathway for students. It's a strategy for Waikato. I think as we were talking about, as I said there, when students arrive, it's not just the learning experience that they have to deal with, but they also have to deal with the culture, making friends, and sometimes this all at once can be quite difficult for them. So a pathway program is a great opportunity for students to start their program in Vietnam, make some friends with students who they will then progress with when they eventually come to New Zealand. So they've already overcome some of those hurdles that the students experience. It's also quite a cost-effective way. For many of the 2+2 or the pathway programs, the cost of the first 2 years that they spend in their home country is not as expensive as it is when they come to New Zealand. So it is a way for them to, I guess, make savings. I guess the other thing is that many of the students make networks. So they have a network that they've made with the students on the pathway programs, even if the students don't progress back to come to New Zealand. But when they go back to Vietnam, they've made a network of students who have been on these programs, and many of our students say that that's one of the positives of being on these pathway programs.
Yeah, thank you. Then besides of like the traditional model of like 2+2 or 2+1, they also have different the direction in order to help students have wider opportunity. Professor Neil, as you know that Vietnamese currently they accept the accepted for the online study. So in this case, in order to experience the New Zealand education, students can take the online for their degree. Can you share a little bit about the strategy of Waikato in order to promote the online delivery for the bachelor's and also the master, and that have even like the same quality, different experience, but still can help students build up their knowledge and also the highest quality from New Zealand education?
Yes, well, you're correct in what you just said. The same quality, but a different experience, and the experience obviously is important. So the University of Waikato has had a policy of trying to build up its online paper offerings over some years, particularly the large and more popular papers for the undergraduate program and our most popular taught master's programs. And of course, COVID has thrown us into needing to accelerate our development program around offering papers online. And a lot of students who were studying in New Zealand were caught back in Asia for the New Zealand summer and then couldn't get back to New Zealand to continue their studies. And they have successfully been working away on completing their degrees using online papers that we have offered. And we certainly committed to helping those students complete their programs in that way if necessary. So, you know, in my view, we want to be able to offer programs online and give as many people as possible the opportunity to engage with University of Waikato programs. But it's also really important that those online programs are the same as what are being taught in person, you know, on our campuses, because then that means the students have the option to come to New Zealand at any point when it suits them to do so, whether it's just for one semester or 1 year, and at a point when they'll benefit, so that if they do that, they get the benefits of the cost savings from studying at a distance, but they've still been to New Zealand and can benefit from some experience of actually being here for a period of time as well. So in some ways that's probably the optimum, and the University of Waikato is entirely supportive of the development of those sorts of educational pathways that make greater use of online learning, but still offer the students the option to come to New Zealand at a point that suits them.
Yeah. Then also, in order to support the students while they are in Vietnam, the cooperation with Vietnamese university, for example, like University Economics for Ho Chi Minh City or National University Economics in Hanoi and some other university. The most important thing, Waikato want to support the student, either study on rail or offshore. They have the equivalent support from academic and also other things in order to keep like the best experience for students. And in order to do it, for last 20 years, Vietnamese government try to develop the faculties. And you know that like the project 322 or 911 from Ministry of Education, send the academic faculty go around the world in order to acquire their PhD and coming back to work in our system and lift up the qualities. And definitely that's one of the fantastic strategy in order to improve the qualities of education. I know that you also been quite long time cooperate with like VIED and MOED, and especially for some university with the scholarship to New Zealand. Can you give any comment in terms of that strategy? And also currently we have the new project in order to send the academic staff go overseas again. Any recommendation in order to do a better performance on that project?
Well, you're right that I have been personally, and Waikato has been involved since I've been here with the projects that look to train the academics of the future for the Vietnamese universities. And I've always thought that was a really important part of our role, not just to accept students who wanted to do undergraduate degrees and master's degrees, but to support the Vietnamese government and the Vietnamese universities with the training of the academics of the future. And our cooperation with the ministry has always been around financial support as well as other sorts of support for the scholarship students who come on the program. The scholarships that the Vietnamese government provide often are not at a level that makes it easy for the students to live well in a New Zealand environment, given our cost of living. So we have always supplemented the allowance that the students get from the Vietnamese government, and in addition, there are opportunities for them to do part-time teaching or research assistance for professors, which helps them to earn some extra money as well. And the New Zealand government has always been generous in the allowance that they're prepared to make for students to actually receive that supplementary income while they're in New Zealand, whether it's part of a scholarship or whether it's formally a work program. So, you know, the development of the Vietnamese university system through these programs is obviously going to take quite a long time, because much as the Vietnamese government has invested a lot in these programs, of course, your population is growing very rapidly, and the demand for university education is growing quickly enough that it's hard to keep up with the demand that will be there for, you know, new professors to teach in the university system. But for us, it's a great thing to see people coming here, completing PhDs, going back to Vietnam and becoming successful teachers in the Vietnamese system. And they become part of our contact network in Vietnam as well, which is a very nice aspect of the program too.
Yeah, they look forward for more Vietnamese lecturers to go to continue study in New Zealand, especially in Waikato in the future. Then also with that experience, I did know that for Waikato, they quite prioritize the Southeast Asia market. Especially, I know that personally you very impressed and support a lot for Vietnamese education. Can you share a bit about your experience and any new future strategy of Waikato in Vietnam?
Well, we are looking to develop closer relationships with a number of key university partners. And your institution, Mr. Quan, is obviously one of those key partners for us. And we see that as an important part of the future, because The extension of what we've just been talking about, the growth in the number of academics at Vietnamese universities who have their PhDs from overseas, also means that the quality of the best institutions in Vietnam is improving all of the time, and that's creating more opportunities and more benefit for institution to institution links between universities like ours and your university. So I think, again, in the past, some Western universities went into Vietnam and established partnerships with a very large number of different universities, spread very thin. But I think the future is a smaller number of very close partnerships. And of course, equally, we are coming up to something like the 20th anniversary of my first meetings at the University of Economics back in the time of Pham Van Nang being the vice rector at that time. That's 2002, a long time ago. And so we feel, there is a very long now relationship with the University of Economics, and also a relationship that we want to grow in terms of the quality and helping both your institution, but also our institution will benefit increasingly from the link with you as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, then hope that the current strategy of Waikato can have more Vietnamese students can have the experience study with Waikato. And Sharon, can you say a little bit about any engagement aspect from Waikato and Vietnamese in order to both institution and also for Vietnamese students in the near future?
So as Professor Neil mentioned, Vietnam is one of our top strategic priority countries for Waikato. And I guess our strategy is around building on the relationships that we already have and making them work as well as we can, and putting in more effort, especially in the current environment. We've been looking at not just students coming to Waikato directly, but obviously on these 2+2 programs, but also looking at other opportunities in terms of how do we offer our degrees fully offshore. So we've been exploring with a small number of partners the opportunity to deliver a number of our more popular degrees in Vietnam, so that students can have the choice. So they can choose to come directly to Waikato, they can come on a pathway program and spend a small amount of time in New Zealand, or they can get a Waikato degree of a similar quality in Vietnam, so they don't have to leave. And these are, these different options, I guess, cater to the different needs of students. And I guess that's become much more important in the current environment. Yeah. And we've been building our capability to do that. And as I say, fundamental to the success of this is our partners, and making sure that the partners that we have a genuine partnership that is has benefits for both institutions. Yeah. And so we're very committed, and we are really excited to explore all these different options in the teaching space. And as Neil also mentioned, as we move from to have more of our alumni coming back to Vietnam and more qualified academics, we're also looking at how we might be able to explore other opportunities, perhaps in the research space as well.
Yeah, thank you. And the last question, actually, that Vietnamese try to improve the qualities of education by joining the ranking system, like the higher education or QS ranking. Then, as the research indicators and internationalization is the two very important indicators for rankings. Then I know that professional, especially you, very experienced in terms of like how to improve the research of the university. And can you share and give some advice for Vietnamese university in this aspect?
Yes, thank you. Well, you know, whatever the university, this is a continuing challenge to think about research performance, because of course research is only one of the things that we expect our academic staff to do, but it is an important thing in the context of international recognition of all of the universities. And you know, every university, whether it's in New Zealand or in the universities in Vietnam, are also expected to make a contribution to national debate and to understanding of national issues. So one of the balances we have to strike is how to contribute within your country and perhaps even in your region, and at the same time have impact in a research sense globally in the way that these research ranking exercises actually measure. So part of that is having members of the academic staff at the universities in Vietnam or here who are well trained in their discipline and they're in touch with what is going on at the international frontier in their discipline. They understand the most recent theoretical developments and the sort of applied and quantitative work that people are doing. So they can sometimes make a contribution just to that frontier of understanding. But if they have that understanding, then at the same time, they can take the work that they're doing in, say, Vietnam, that may use data on aspects of Vietnamese society or the Vietnamese economy or Vietnamese trade, and then use that to integrate into a paper that would be of interest to international scholars. And one of the benefits that the Vietnamese universities have is that, you know, the international interest in Vietnam and the Vietnamese economy is growing. So the opportunity to use information about Vietnam as the basis for an academic paper that finds its way into one of the regularly referenced international journals is growing. But that's the challenge, and it's supporting the academic staff and encouraging them to not just accept that publishing their ideas in a purely local outlet is what's needed, but if they have good ideas, then they should make them available locally, but they should also be looking to translate them into a paper that an international journal would accept and therefore build the reputation of the institution, but also increase the knowledge of Vietnam internationally, which is an important part of what we do.
Yeah, thank you very much. Back to about 6-7 years ago, you did have the presentation at our university about how to improve the academic performance. Then for your information, currently US have quite good international publication, and in Vietnam we are #1 in terms of the research published in ISI and Scopus for the business area. Thank you for your advice. Then one more time, I hope that even like very quick talk this morning, but that also gives the very good snapshot about Vietnamese students from the Professor Neil Quigley with 20-year experience, and that also help parents and students can see the opportunity to study in New Zealand. But more than that, also some recommendation for university, even like currently partner of Waikato or not, have some idea in order to improve the performance in international ranking. Thank you very much, and hope you both have a good health and safe in this COVID condition, and look forward to see you in Vietnam very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, and chúc sức khỏe.
Yeah,
Come on.
thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Professor Neil. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, always talking with you give me the energy. Yeah,
Always.
Yeah.
always very nice to talk to you. And you know, here we feel as though, you know, an important bit of our life has been cut off because we can't come to see our friends in Vietnam, other places. We really hope that it's going to change sometime soon. And I, though, you know, just following at a distance what you just said, the you know, improvement in the international visibility of the University of Economics, I think that's great. And so, you know, as an honorary doctor of your university, I look on with great pride as I see those changes occurring. It's very good.
Thank you, and look forward to see you in Vietnam. Thank you.
Vâng, xin cảm ơn giáo sư Neil, thầy Quân và cô Sharon. Thì trước khi kết thúc chương trình, Tú Mỹ xin điểm nhanh những cái ý trong cuộc thảo luận vừa rồi. Thì ý thứ nhất mà Tú Mỹ hiểu được, ý thứ nhất mà mình nghe được thì đó chính là du học sinh Việt Nam của chúng ta được đánh giá rất cao về khả năng tư duy logic và sự cầu tiến và sự cần cù. Tuy nhiên thì theo các chuyên gia, để thành công bứt phá hơn nữa ở môi trường đại học phương Tây thì chúng ta sẽ cần bổ sung các kỹ năng quan trọng khác như là tính sáng tạo, tư duy phản biện và đặc biệt là khả năng nghiên cứu. Và ngoài ra thì để hội nhập thành công thì các bạn cũng cần trang bị một nền tảng tiếng Anh học thuật vững chắc cùng sự hiểu biết về nền văn hóa của đất nước sở tại trước khi lên đường ha. Một tin vui trong cái thời đại Covid đang hoành hành hiện nay đó chính là giấc mơ du học New Zealand của chúng ta không nhất thiết phải bị tạm gác qua một bên, bởi vì ngoài việc học online thì các trường đang triển khai rất là nhiều hình thức linh hoạt, ví dụ như là du học tại chỗ hoặc là du học bán phần chuyển tiếp. Vâng, và thời lượng của số thứ 2 của chúng ta đến đây là kết thúc rồi. Hẹn gặp lại các bạn vào số tiếp theo của chương trình Chìa khóa du học New Zealand 2021 nha.